and hopefully that division will have a chance to come back in the future.
Well, and I think that everybody sitting here in the studio at the table and where you're at in your studio at home, Mike, I'll guarantee you nobody disagrees with you because this is a fun class to watch. There is a lot of talented drivers, and I would love to see some of these guys step up into upper divisions. Because I know, I'll tell you right now, there's some guys in that class that can drive bigger cars. They can drive the V8s, that can drive, there is some talent there. I would love to see, if anything, it'll force these guys to step up. Whether you go mini stocks, whether you go pro stock, sport mods, whatever it is.
These guys are fun to watch.
Absolutely.
It is a fun class. And you know what?
Here's the thing. This is what I think. This is my personal take on this deal. We talk with these guys a lot in the pit area. We talk with all the drivers. We make it a point.
Those guys.
The whole group, and I mean the whole group.
The whole class.
Everybody. I don't have a bad word to say about anybody in that division because I'll tell you right now, at the racetrack, the Hedges have been nothing but great to us. Okay? The Nelson family. These guys here are some of the funniest dudes you're going to talk to at the racetrack. You know what I mean? They truly are. These guys are they're out for a good time. Unfortunately, some of that good times get ruined by people's actions, and you get caught up in it.
Yeah.
Everybody in this division is the Tritchlers. I mean, we've had some conversations with Bree Tritchler, who's listening right now, that have been fun. She's a funny chick, and she can drive a race car. I hate this for everybody involved.
I mean, we all, as race fans and race announcers, we hate to see good racing go to waste.
Well, and here's what I'm talking about. Bree Tritchler. Listen to this. She says, all the racers will survive. Everyone needs to focus on moving up classes. Don't let it break your dream of racing. How do you want to handle this? Do we want to be PO'd and focus on this and go nowhere and fight and be abrasive? Or do we want to say, you know what? Let's move up. Let's find a different class. Let's whatever we got to do to keep on racing. Mike's not saying these guys can't race at the track. He's simply saying you're not going to do it in that division because that division's done.
Right.
Yep.
I'll tell you right now, the message that was sent by Mike McCann is heavy-handed.
Oh, yeah.
We know that. There's no arguing with that. I don't care who, and I like Mike. I mean, but Mike came down with an iron hammer and said, this is the jury. This is the jury's decision. Now we have to live with it. Now you've got to figure out what you're going to do.
I'm going to butt in and comment on what Ronnie just posted. You guys, it says, I see it as poor sportsmanship if you got to go throwing punches. If it is you that caused an accident, then apologize and continue on, leave all the bad thoughts on the track. And I was actually going to bring that up earlier that, we all make mistakes. And sometimes we lose our tempers. I'm sure everybody in this room has said things that they regret. Sometimes we do and say things.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Several times.
Yeah, but anyway, so we make a mistake.
Delete.
That's just it. We apologize and we move on. And that is exactly what he's saying here is just, basically apologize and move on.
I can see many stocks exploding.
Yeah.
Because that's for cost factor with what those guys have been running. I think the mini stocks is going to explode.
Is
that the next one up?
And it's not that much more of a climb for them money-wise.
And I think, Dave Stahl, that you're spot on with that observation and that prediction because it's one step up, if you want to call it, when you move to a rear-wheel drive. There's still a four-cylinder race car, but you're talking about a rear-wheel drive where you're going to have to change how you drive the race car.
Whole new experience.
But while we're talking about this, Mike, you still there?
I'm still here.
Okay, I want to get you in here because I was talking about a couple of incidents up and down, at tracks that we're associated with that we'd spend a lot of time at, one of them being Bakersfield Speedway. Your deal. You guys had one of the biggest races. I mean, definitely I think that race that you guys just had this last weekend, the Mike Moshier Classic, now rivals in prestige the Budweiser Nationals.
Yeah, I could see that. The Mike Moshier Classic, it's turned into It's turned into one of those ones. It was originally, a memorial for Mike Moshier, who passed away from his battles with cancer. But it's turned into more than, hey, let's remember him. You know what? I want to get in victory lane because I remember those times when he was talking about me racing. I was, and it's one of those ones that's bringing back good memories, and to honor him by having great racing, fast racing, hard racing for him.
Oh,
and it's really cool because this week at the Mike Moshier Classic, every interview that we had in victory lane was in tears.
I believe that 100%
I
because
bet.
if you knew Mike Moshier,
They weren't sadness tears; they were tears of joy.
absolutely, and to win a race that is titled under his name is, and like I said, especially in that area, is huge for those drivers and huge for those fans. But along with big races comes big racing, and Bakersfield Speedway was no different than Southern Oregon Speedway this weekend with an incident that unfortunately didn't take place in the pits, actually happened on the racetrack.
In front of the fans.
Okay, now, does anybody know anything about Scott Schweitzer? I'm going to tell you a little bit about Scott Schweitzer. I get pumped up and I start going faster than I think. This is one of the most kind men you will ever meet in your life, Scott Schweitzer. This guy here, you look at him, he's just this big burly dude. Looks like he just walk up and tear you in half. He'll hug you.
I love him.
This guy is class act. This guy's got a heart of gold. This guy is for the racers, okay? But there's two sides to every coin. Now you come to his racetrack, and you get out of your car on the racetrack and start throwing punches at a driver while he's in a period, whether he's in his car or not. I'm going to tell you right now, Scott's going to come down. Mike, you work with Scott on a week. I work with Scott, throughout the year, and over the phone and through media. You work with him on a weekly basis. You know Scott better than we do. Tell me I'm wrong with what I just said.
No, Scott's one of those guys that he knows that the track would be nothing without the drivers, but he also knows that the drivers, they need to handle themselves properly, otherwise they can go somewhere else, because he'd rather have great drivers, great personalities, and great people out there and have 10 of them than have 50 of them and 48 of them beat the hell out of each other, talk crap, and end up in jail every Saturday.
Well, you're right. And unfortunately, at the Mike Moshier Classic, one of the drivers involved is a big name down there that's loaded with talent.
Yeah, this kid, I'm not going to mention any names, but this kid is probably, I'd say, in the big divisions, a top 10 talent.
No doubt. How many races has that dude won there in a modified? You know what I mean? And if he's not winning, he's in the top 5. He's competitive.
Well, he's always competitive. Yeah, he's always in the points in everywhere he goes. He's in the points hunt everywhere he goes.
This is what I'm talking about.
He can miss races and still be in the points hunt.
Talent.
That's how good this kid is.
Absolutely. And talent doesn't mean you have the ability to control your emotions. Okay? And this, now we're not talking bad about, we're just talking about the situation here. There was an on-track situation. Now, I read, and I'm gonna talk about what I know from what I read in comments. Okay? We tried to make contact, couldn't get any contact. We have their number, haven't answered the phone. We do know there was an on-track incident. Mike, this driver that we're talking about, like I said, no names can be said, made contact with another driver. The drivers came to a stop in turn 2. He gets out of his car because the initial contact was initiated by the guy that got out of the car. Okay, but prior to that, what the other here's what a lot of people didn't know. His brake pedal, he runs a hanging brake pedal, was laying on the floor of his cockpit. Okay? Makes it a little difficult to stop a race car when your brake pedal's on the floor. Again.
Yeah.
This is
It's a lot difficult.
This is an incident happened. There was contact made because of that. The other driver doesn't know that. Okay, he doesn't. He thinks this dude drove in and hit him on purpose. I think a lot of us would probably think that. I think, given how it went down, a lot of us would probably think that in the cockpit. Okay, what's this driver do? Gets hot-headed, retaliates. Right? Both cars come to a stop in turn 2. Mike, if I'm saying anything out of line, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're not saying anything. But the one thing that you did that I don't think you've known, because in our talk I didn't get a chance to explain it. Prior to this race was a 2-stage race. Half laps, then they had a break, and then the other half lap. The first half, these 2 cars just seemed to have a magnet on the track, wherever they were. One car was having serious issues. The other car fell back early and was trying to make his way back up towards the front where he belongs talent-wise.
Absolutely. But with a brake pedal on the floor, that's hard to do.
And it's even harder for the other guy who's struggling and having stuff happen to his car. They came together a few times. A couple other cars were involved as well in it. But ultimately, after the break, which to me, if I'm a driver and there was issues during that break, I'd fix my car. I'd go over and ask the dude. You know, I'd be like, hey, I'm running for points. You're not running for points. You're coming out here, you know, whatever it is. Do you have a problem? You know, let's just race. You know, don't get frustrated with it. Let's just race. You know, I don't want to take you out, vice versa. Let's, you know, get going, get finished with it. You know, do something. Maybe have, you know, do something other than keep the aggression pent up, because that's what you need to do. You know, and unfortunately, lap number 2 of the second half is when all this happened. I didn't know about the brake pedal.
That came out it came out online today as part of the discussion that was taking place about the incident. The brake pedal was on the floor, and I kind of like, whoa, that kind of changes everything in this situation. But the fact of the matter is, the driver with the brake pedal that was on the floor was the one that got out of his car out of anger and actually punched the other driver. I don't understand punching somebody with a helmet on. You're only going to hurt your hand, you know what I mean? So he threw some punches. Officials got involved, and there was a dirt clod thrown, and an official got hit in the eye with part of that dirt clod as it hit the car and broke. Again, throwing things at cars should never happen. Anger getting a hold of you, and this can cost you big time, as we see at Southern Oregon Speedway. I don't know what the final results are, if that final results or a decision has been made at Bakersfield, Mike. I don't know. Have you heard anything from Scott Schweitzer about...
IMCA sent down their official ruling.
IMCA did not mess around with this either, and we can actually get a copy. Mike, I'm sure you've got a copy of that notice. We can post that on Moxie Media Promotions about what IMCA does in an incident like this.
Scott Schweitzer hasn't stepped up. Excuse me. I can't use that word, step up. Scott Schweitzer hasn't publicly said anything other than what IMCA has done so far.
Well, here's the thing, too. And like I said earlier, knowing Scott and the fact that he's just this big, gentle giant, he may look at what IMCA said and said, whoa, I don't think I need to do anything in this situation. Okay? So IMCA, Mike, do you have the statement there in front of you?
Do I what?
Do you have the statement there in front of you from IMCA?
I'll grab it real quick. Whoops.
If you can bring that up and read it to us. I don't even think the guys here in the studio at Moxie know what the decision was. But I read the statement, and I was going to get into that in this discussion. I read the statement, and I just thought to myself, whoa, IMCA is not messing around in Southern California. Paul Vetter.
I don't have the official statement from IMCA because I never got it. And I haven't been able to go back through and see if I can find it. I have the summary of what happened, of what the ruling.
I think Corey's looking it up right now, Mike.
Mike, go ahead and read the summary, if you will.
IMCA has sent down fines They gave a 6-week suspension at all